multi or three alternatives. You heard this a few weeks ago from Brent, and that is up there as well. This is a modification of that, okay? So here we go. This is a financial strategy analysis of qualified funds. So this is, let's meet John. He's age 50. He's got a couple of $100,000 in his qualified funds, and his concerns are what most people's concerns are: fear of investing funds in Wall Street accounts, cannot afford another 2008 disaster or market decline, uncertainty with federal tax rates due to climbing debt, and taxability of Social Security. Those are all very legitimate concerns that most people today who are building some type of assets here, these are absolute concerns on their mind, okay? So what are the alternative? What's the alternative? One is traditional mutual funds, right? They can put their money in a qualified savings program, age 50. They can take their 401k, move it to an IRA, and leave the IRA till age 65, okay? Based on the Vanguard Total Stock Market Fund over the last 15 years, this is what that value would be worth. It'd be worth about $441,000 had they put that money in that Vanguard fund for the last 15 years. And that is not a super aggressive fund, but that's what it would have done, okay? Meaning it would have been worse if it was aggressive, okay? If they pulled out 5% a year, they'd get $22,000 of taxable income, but after taxes, assuming only 30%, they would net out $15,000, okay? And here is that Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. This is just showing you the performance of $200,000 and that it would be worth $441,000 at the end of 15 years had they put it in 15 years ago, right? So this is just the backup to that, okay? And how much do you take out? What's the amount that you should take out? Well, I won't go through it all with you, but financial planners have long recommended that your initial withdrawal be 4% of your savings, meaning, now, this example showed a 5% withdrawal, which means that there's an opportunity for that account to deplete and turn to zero, right? They recommend 4, but now it's actually, some even recommended as low as 3% to maintain the value of the account. So this is just a third-party piece from USA Today back in October 2013. Okay, so this here and this here shows you that if you pull that $22,000 out every year over that last 15 years, your account would have spiraled downward to $339,000 if you were pulling just 5% out every year. So now you understand why they're saying 4 or 3, so you don't have this spiraling effect. Okay, so you basically your account has 25% less in it if you did it that way. Okay. The second alternative is utilizing an index annuity, which provides an upfront bonus anywhere from 8 to 10%. So that $200,000 would turn into $216 or possibly $220. You get a 6.5 to 7% guaranteed rate of return for an income stream. You can get a guaranteed lifetime income benefit. You have no market risk. You have upside earnings with no downside risk. Well, that sounds pretty appealing, right? This is option 2. So Plan A, we already discussed, right? Plan A would be what we just went through. Well, Plan B would be, what if we put that into an indexed annuity? And this is similar to what Brent talked about back a couple of weeks ago. So you'd have $216,000. You have no market risk. At age 65, your annuity grew to $591,000. With a lifetime annual withdrawal of $29,000. It's still taxable because it's still an IRA or qualified money. That's $20,000 after tax income. So Plan B would have been $20,000. So that's a difference of $5,100. So, John, here's Plan A. And Plan A, you have, you leave all your money in the market where you have market risk. And here's what it potentially would look like based on the past. Or you can move it to Plan B, and here's what it would look like, and most importantly, you have no market risk, and you have more money. Well, I don't know about you, but if I were Plan A, I'd want to be Plan B, right? So I'd want to look at Plan B. Now, and this here just shows the stability of indexing with the updated numbers. This is from American Equity. This is just the indexing strategy, okay? The green line being the index, the red line being the S&P, and you can see the trend here of the red line up and down. I call it the EKG, and the green line, which is, goes up, doesn't go backwards, just goes across. And by the way, this is based on indexed annuities where the rates are lower, meaning the cap rate. So this is not an Anico IUL indexing strategy. This is just, for example, an indexing strategy, okay? So it just further drives home the point of what we're talking about with no market risk. That's the point of it, okay? Here's the guaranteed income value. This can be run right through American Equity's back office. It shows here at age 65, there's the balance. If he takes out a guaranteed income stream, this is what he'd be able to take out on an annual basis, okay? Alternative 3, and I know I'm going through this quick, folks, but a lot of you have seen a variation of this here. Leo, as I said, just modified it a little bit. Here's alternative 3, utilizing index annuity plus index universal life. So this is option number 3. Index returns up to 14% cap with no downside risk. Lifetime life insurance, tax-free benefit to heirs. Living benefits, including critical, chronic, and terminal illness. Example, heart attack, stroke, cancer. Tax-free growth and tax-free distributions. No market risk, compliance with IRS code 7702. So you'll notice here the list of attributes is getting longer, right? So let's look at how this could be beneficial for the client. Same option A of $200,000 with the market risk, or $441,000. Let's look at what the difference would be in Plan B if he moves that money into an annuity using 72T, okay? So this is just basically showing you an example that if we took the $216,000 and put it into a bonus annuity that paid 8%, that would start off at $216. Using Section 72T of the IRA, of the IRS code, which allows for premature distributions without the 10% tax penalty because it's contractual, and the purchase of an IUL, which in this case would be if we took out an amount of money here, and then after tax, the net would be $10,000. That would funnel into an IUL, which would provide a $426,000 death benefit, which they don't have here. They would also have living benefits, which they don't have here, and they would also have a tax-free income at age 65 of $24,000. Now, in addition to that, they still have their IRA. It is not depleted. There's $243,000 in the IRA with a 5% guaranteed lifetime income. That's an additional $12,000 a year. It is still taxable. So when you take out the 30% tax, that's $8,500, and that's a total of $32,770 versus $15,000, which is if they just left the money in a qualified plan. So now what we've done here, and you saw the sneak preview because it came up early, is it's a $17,000 income difference at retirement. Not to mention the preservation or potential preservation of their Social Security income because they have less qualified money than they would have in Plan A because everything they take out of here is 100% taxable, which could affect their Social Security income. So not only did we give them life insurance, living benefits, we gave them more than double the income at retirement. And that's really what it's all about, right? When we talk about retirement, it's cash flow. This here, Leo just pulled an article from Forbes on the 72T early distribution from your IRA. I'm not going to read it to you, but it's just third-party validation of the 72T concept. This is an analysis with no tax penalty. This shows the $216,000. You'll notice he used a conservative number here, that it was only compounding at 4.25% per year, okay? And if a distribution was taken out of $13,500 per year for the rules of 72T, and then taxes were taken out, that's where the $10,100 came about, okay? So we're using the net of that because the taxes you can never eliminate. However, what you can do is take all the future earnings and make them tax-free. So what we've done here, they took $13,500 out, paid the tax on the money today to allow the $10,000 to now grow in a tax-free environment for the future, okay? This here is just the actual proposal. the $426,000 death benefit with the $24,000 cash annually for 56 years, the $10,000 a year going into an IUL per the 72T designation. The living benefits that come along with that they obviously don't have now, right? And let's keep in mind, folks, as we talk to people about 401ks and IRAs, here's what I always say to somebody: look, if you're putting $500 a month in your 401k today, and something happens to you next month, what does your wife get? Well, $500. Okay. Well, if you took $500 and put that in an IUL, you would get X, right? The death benefit or potentially the living benefits. So there's a real significant value in having an IUL day one, because remember, as soon as that first premium check is cashed, you are covered, okay? You're obviously covered for life insurance, and after 30 days, you're covered for critical illness, and after 2 years, you're covered for chronic illness. So that is a major, major deal that does not happen in a 401k or a Roth IRA or some alternative vehicle, okay? We're providing value for that money immediately, day one, tax-free, okay? This here just demonstrates the 14% cap with the 0% floor, minimum guarantee of 3%. We all know this is predicated on the S&P, and if we go back 30 years per Brent's great presentation a couple of weeks ago, we know that if these cap rates were in place, 14% zero floor, 30 years ago, the S&P would have performed in this product at 8.94%. Pretty powerful, okay? And there was no time, 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, where it did not perform between at least 8%, between 8 and 9%. So that's pretty stable, folks. I mean, I am extremely comfortable showing people those kind of numbers, okay? Here's the guaranteed income once again off the balance of the annuity that has not been put into the IUL. So there's where that $12,000 income comes in if they started that right at age 66. And this just shows their tax-free money that they get out of their IUL after contributing for 15 years and stopping. They're pulling the tax-free income of $24,000 a year. And as you know, folks, these are illustrations. It doesn't have to be exactly done this way. These are just a stagnant value to show somebody, or a static value to show somebody what it could be on a maximum loan provision over a period of time. Of course, we all know that could change. They may not start off at $24,000. They may want to start off at $30,000. Maybe they don't want income for 56 years because they don't think they're going to live till they're 121, right? I subscribe to that theory, but maybe I want income for 20 or 25 years. So, again, this is just an example, okay? So don't ever get caught up in the fact that, well, can this be changed? Is this a contract? No, this is just an example. It's an illustration, okay? And as you can see, this continues on. What the real magic is, and you know, I know you've heard this, but this is a good opportunity for me to talk about this, is this accumulation value. This is really what makes this all magical in an index universal life policy. That is not true in a 401k. It is not true in a whole life policy. It's not true in an IRA, a Roth IRA, or any other vehicle that you can think of. Is that, see, even though you're pulling out $24,000 in this at age 71, you'll notice the value goes from $293 to $318, or maybe that's $350. So the value still went up $22,000, even though you took $24,000 out. So let's talk about it this way. Let's just round this off to $300,000 for sake of example. Okay, let's say your interest on this $24,000, let's say it was 6%. Let's be outrageous, right? It's only 4.8 right now, but let's say it's 6. Well, 6% on, let's call it $25,000 is how much? $1,500, right? So you're paying $1,500 to take out the $25,000, meaning that's what's being deducted from your account in terms of interest. However, you're earning 8.5% on the $300,000. That's $27,500. So would you trade $1,500 of interest for $27,500? $1,500 interest for $27,500. So what I'm saying, folks, is even though you are paying interest on the portion that you're taking out, the entire account value is earning at whatever, 8 or 8.5%. For instance, last year, if somebody had a calendar year last year, while they took out this 24,000, let's call it 25,000, and paid 5%, because it's obviously less than that. They paid 5% of 1250. Their entire account of 300,000 earned 14 last year. I'm just talking about last year. So they paid $1,200 in interest, but they earned 8.5% on 300,000. Excuse me, 14% on 300,000. That's 42,000 just last year, and that is locked in, right? Because it resets. So, I mean, it's pretty, I could go on and on about that. I get pretty fired up when we talk about that. Now, of course, we all know that it's being deducted from the surrender value and the death benefit upon death. That's collateralizing it, okay? But this is a non-recourse loan. So if you continue to live, if you go out to age 90, it's going to continue to pay you, and this accumulation value is going to continue to grow. All right. So at age 100, you got $848,000 of tax-free income you receive, and you still have close to $500,000 tax-free death benefit that would pass on to years. And by the way, folks, let's not look at age 100 as a crazy number as perhaps we did 20 and 30 years ago, right? Because people today are living longer. We already know that, right? Statistically, if you live to your age 65, you got a 1 in 4 chance of living to your between 92 and 94 years old. Well, that wasn't the case 25, 30 years ago, right? So that means you live to your 65, you got a 25% chance that you'll be alive at age 94. This can only get better, right? So that kind of concludes the presentations today.